Well, good morning, everybody. Oh, I'm so excited y'all are in this room. I feel the energy right now. My name's Tuere Butler. I'm a part of the Plywood team, director of operations, and I have two of my friends with me, literally, because I've known them since 2020. I'm not just saying that. This is Dori Pap and Catherine Johansson. Dori is from Georgia Tech, and Catherine is from Agnes Scott. And today we're going to be talking about the future of internships, because as you know, internships have changed dramatically, especially in these last 3 to 4 years, I would say. So just to give a little bit of overview of who you are and what you do, I'm gonna let you share with the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'll start. Good morning, everybody. So excited to be here. As Tuere said, I'm Dori, and I work at Georgia Tech. I'm situated in the College of Business, but I work in a small center that focuses on social impact and leadership. And part of my work is to run some programs. One of them is an internship program for nonprofits, and then I teach some courses on social impact, social entrepreneurship, and take care of some other programming at Tech too. So.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. You hearing me okay? So I'm Catherine Johansson, and I'm at Agnes Scott College. I am the senior career coach and also employer liaison for nonprofit arts, social impact, and sustainability, which basically means, yes, handful, basically means that I'm working both with students and with employers. So I have undergrads and grads that I help with career exploration and applying for opportunities. And then I also work with employers to help them find great candidates.
Great. And so I want this to be, since this is such a small group, I want this to be a little bit of interactive. So there will be times where if I see you nodding your head or like, oh my gosh, I feel you on that, I'm going to reach out to you and be like, share more or expound more, because I want this to be more of a conversation. Okay? Is that fair? Great. So I would like to talk about specifically, since we're talking about the future of internships, and we've noticed this trend, from you all's standpoint, what has been the biggest pain point of this trend, and or how would you name it?
So I would think what I've seen in the past few years, I've been at Agnes Scott for 8 years. And initially, I was just a career coach, but then I moved into employer relations. But before that, I was at the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, working with employer relations and interns as well. And what I've seen over time is that there's an increase in the nonprofits having to compete for interns. And that is because a couple of reasons. One is that, it's the cost of living has gone up. Cost of tuition has gone up. And so more and more they're having to look for opportunities that are either paid or remote or hybrid or that kind of thing. And in addition to that, I would say that it's hard. So I'm trying to support them in that. But in addition, I would say that the for-profits have done a better job at presenting themselves as environmentally or socially responsible. Whether that is true or not about a particular organization is debatable, but they're definitely attracting more attention of our students. But that being said, there are ways to approach that where you can actually offer more benefits to students or funding programs and that kind of thing, which we'll talk about later. But that, to me, that is the shift, that it is more so that you're having to compete for the same people. Normally before it was, students want to go nonprofit or they want to go corporate. And now there's more of an overlap because they have that increased pressure. At Agnes Scott, we have 40% of our student population is Pell eligible, federal grant Pell eligible, which means that they're high financial need. And then also, so it's their own living expenses, but also they might be sending money to their families. So a lot of them are working outside of that. So that's what I would say.
That's great. Dori, did you want to add to
No,
that?
I think Catherine covered it. That's the situation.
Yeah. For me personally, before coming to Plywood, which I've been on the team for 3 years, but I worked in government for 22, and I also was an intern coordinator there. And so I think we're definitely seeing a major shift from the unpaid internships or school credit only internships. And that can be a little bit, in the government world, that was, a thing, but now as you're moving into nonprofits, that's also a little bit of difficulty because we're working on the donations of others. So when we think about when we're talking about, oh, our budget, how do we budget for these internships, and are there creative ways for us to get students still who want to be a part of our organizations and still want to do the work, but how can we make sure that we're supporting them in a way that will sustain them as well while they're in school? Can you all talk about just the shift of unpaid internships and creative ways that maybe you can share with our nonprofit organizations here today on what to do or best practices?
Yeah, I can start on that. So at Georgia Tech, and the makeup of the student body at Georgia Tech, it's a little bit different than Agnes Scott, so less percentage of that Pell recipient. But definitely the past 5 or 6 or even more years, there was a strong message that, for example, in the College of Business, they're not advertising any internships that are unpaid. And this wasn't anything to do with the nonprofit sector. It was more thinking about the student experience, and that the students that will most likely take on unpaid internships would be the ones who would need the pay the most. So this was, you know, a decision that was brought collectively. So this is really where our program developed. We realized that most of the nonprofits, especially the grassroots small ones, do not have the resources to pay students, especially at a competitive rate, but they have a very high need for those students, especially, you know, the type of Georgia Tech students that that could bring impact to their organizations. So then what we created is a fellowship that we raise the funds and support the students, and they basically work for the nonprofit organization, in the sense that the nonprofit doesn't have to pay them, but they do get paid through the fellowship. But there is a very strong direction to only accepting and advertising paid internships.
Yeah. And I can definitely add to that. So we have seen the same thing, and at Agnes Scott College for the past several years, we have had a generous grant from Goizeta, where we have students, if they're pursuing an unpaid internship or minimally paid internship, we can offer them funding for that. So it can either come from, you know, they find an internship at one of your organizations, or we do partner with certain well-established nonprofits where they will set aside a spot for an Agnes Scott student, and we will guarantee that they will get paid as long as they, you know, you select our student by a certain deadline, which is, in this year, it's May 15th. Basically, we have to just make sure that it's all in place before the summer. But I'm very excited about that, and it's really helping the students get what they need and get the experience that they need, and also the nonprofits get the help that they need. I didn't mention this, but I had a 15-year career in nonprofits, so I totally understand. I used to manage interns and volunteers, so I totally understand how everybody's wearing many hats and everybody needs the help. But this is a great way to bridge that gap.
Did y'all hear that? Like, this is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I've used both Agnes Scott and Georgia Tech, and we've had 2 fellows from Georgia Tech that were a part of this paid programming, and it's like a weight off of your shoulders to know that students who are still interested in working with your organization, and then you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to really take care of them in the way that they need to be taken care of. Now, as nonprofits, we're always offering perks like free coffee or donuts or, you know, a gas card to be creative, but that's something that is really substantial and can really, you know, set the student up for success. Now, when you guys are looking at different nonprofits to partner with, is there a curriculum or a standard? What kind of nonprofits are you looking for?
So for our program, if they're becoming an official partner, then it does need to be a well-established nonprofit. So it has been around for several years, and also they have a staff of at least 5. And the reason why we say that is that we have gotten a situation where a student has gotten an internship and they were either going to receive funding or going to receive credit, and then the person that they were assigned to support, left or, disappeared or whatever. And so we just don't want them to get in that situation. So we do need to make sure it's that's been around a while, and also we have a person who is going to supervise them. And the person who is going to supervise them, we do also ask that it is someone who can train them in that particular role. So, it's not that if you don't have a marketing person, you're going to get a marketing intern, because the students are very strong in their writing and communication abilities. They're really strong in their teamwork. We actually have all of our intern supervisors evaluate them using it's a software called Skills Survey, which is excellent. And so they evaluate themselves, and also the supervisors evaluate them. And so they've been rated highly on these transferable skills, but they may have never been in a marketing role before. So you want to make sure that you have someone who can train them.
Yeah, so our program is a little bit more grassroots in the sense that we are not in the career development office, so we don't have a team doing those evaluations. So we so far sourced our nonprofits, through friends and family, if you will. But there is an intentionality of building long-term relationships with the nonprofits that we partner with. So we have several other programs where student projects related to a course, where we also compensate the nonprofit for the time they spend, and usually those who then move into our internship programs already been with us for at least a semester, so we got to know them well and they got to know us, and we got to understand their needs better, so we don't go blindly into the fellowship relationship, and the vetting. A lot of those organizations came through the Center for Civic Innovation, which is a great organization in Atlanta that has an Accelerator program. So a lot of these nonprofits come through that, and they are very early stage, so we're not necessarily looking for the established ones, but we're definitely looking for capacity on that team to work with an intern, to work with a student. So that's a great impact.
That's great. Yeah.
So I'm with Team Up Mentoring. We do long-term work with families affected by high-level trauma, and we love interns because it goes with our mission of the next generation. My question is, we are about an hour and a half outside of Atlanta, so probably not you guys. But who am I looking for to connect with about internships? So right now we only have internships from UGA and GSU. They're all on pursuing social work. But, we do programs of other kinds. We have a marketing fundraising side.
Yeah.
So what keywords or what positions am I looking for to connect with the right person?
Let me repeat the question for our online audience. You want to know who or where you should be looking for internships outside of where do you normally go to look for internships?
Well, I had to, so at UGA, it took me a long time to
figure
connect
out.
with the right
Yeah.
person to
Yeah.
do social work with.
Okay.
So if I decide hey, I'd like to have a marketing intern to work with our fundraising person,
Right.
how do I cut through the noise of these huge websites to try to find the right person?
That's an excellent question. Question.
You go ahead,
Okay.
Catherine. 'Cause
That
that's
is a
what you
great
do.
question. So I came from a larger university, so Georgia State, and then I went to Agnes Scott College. So just an idea, or just to give you an idea of how it's organized at a large organization like that. So at Georgia State, they have a main career office, and then they have satellite career offices. So they have a business school career office, a policy school career office, which includes social work, for example. And they have the education. They have several different, so large universities are that way. So if you want undergrads, then you should go to the main career office, contact with someone in the main career. If you want specialists, more advanced, like the business aspect of that, then you need to go to the business office. So now some some universities are centralized, meaning they're more closely working. All those offices are more closely working together, and they're using the same system. So most colleges and universities, Agnes Scott included, uses a platform called Handshake. Yes. So if you post on Handshake, then you can choose the schools that you want to post to. So you just want to. Well, this is I'm sorry about that. In addition to posting on Handshake, what I would recommend is that you're connecting with the appropriate career office, whatever your interest is, and say, can you please make sure that this gets out to them? I mean, Agnes Scott, we have something called the career community model. We shifted a few years ago towards that, and some universities have that, where you have, most places there's the career person and there's the employer relations person. And a lot of times they're not talking to one another, or they're not up to speed on what's happening. So a couple years ago, we shifted to a career community model where 50% of my time is working with career coach or with students, and 50% of my time is working with employer relations. And we're specialized in specific industries so that we're more well-versed on what you all need. And also, I actively, yes, you are posting in Handshake, for example, but I actively pull some of those opportunities and feature them in my newsletter to students that are signed up for that particular interest area. So nonprofit, arts, social impact, and sustainability, I'm pulling those opportunities and I'm posting them. We have a LinkedIn group and also a newsletter. And so I'm constantly trying to feature less known organizations that are incredible that, I feel like that they should be a part of. So definitely with the universities, make sure that you're connecting with the right career office. And if you're posting on a platform, make sure it's going to the audience you want it to go to. It's not just going to the main people if you want specialized people.
Yeah, most universities by now have some kind of center or department. So if you just search social impact, social innovation, maybe service learning, and then connect to somebody there, they will know how to then connect you to those people that Catherine is talking about. And it is hard at the beginning. If you don't have you don't know anybody, then these are the places that I recommend starting. But then once you have one student from that university, your best bet is word of mouth through that student. So for example, for our partners, we partner with one organization for 3 rotations. So I always tell them, yes, we post, you're posting on the Handshake, on the big platforms. We send it out in the newsletter, but your best bet is telling that student to put it on their social, and 80% of the time, that's how they find their next student, is that student recruiting the next intern. So.
Yeah. And that's really true. I mean, we finally got one social work student from UGA 2 years ago, and now we have, because they
Yeah.
How many of you are using Handshake? Yeah. Do you find it successful, or I don't need that? Yeah, it's like do you use LinkedIn? Yeah. LinkedIn Jobs? That I find that to be a little bit more right. But to Dori and Catherine's point, to find that one person, whether it's in the career advanced placement center or in whatever your focus is, to really connect with that person. I just emailed someone yesterday at Emory, because I'm looking for social impact, and that's the word that I'm going for. So I'm like, can you connect me with this person, or can you send out this posting for me? And I find that if I have a person alongside of the advertisement on LinkedIn and on Handshake, that yields a better return than just doing. Another thing that I wanted to mention was virtual career fairs as well. I've done a couple of those, and I find those to be helpful, because then you get a chance, depending on how the school sets it up, you get a chance to interact with the students one-on-one, not only in a group because they're watching you on Zoom, but then you can kind of Calendly your time to speak with students one-on-one and have that connection time as well. And even if you don't pick that student, they're telling someone else about your organization based off the interaction that you have. So that's helpful too.
I'm glad you mentioned career fairs, because we are moving to, we're in person pre-COVID, then we went all virtual, and now we're going to be a combination of the two. So, and also with our career fairs are free. Some organizations do charge, but it is less expensive even for those if you do virtual, and also you don't have the time of travel and getting away from your day. So I think virtual career fairs are really beneficial for you to, you can do info sessions that are a group, or you can meet briefly with a student one-on-one and really gauge their interest.
And I would just in kind of the logistics part of this is something that I'm learning too. What is the cycle of students looking for internships? Especially at Georgia Tech, they now are already looking for their next spring internship because they have everything else mapped out. And this is something that I run into with our nonprofit partners, that they don't really know what their needs are going to be until kind of the very last minute, when it's usually already late to catch the bigger crowd. You still catch the, the laggards that are like, okay, I still don't have an internship for the summer, but most of the students are now thinking about their next spring. So if there's any way that you can kind of project what your needs are going to be, or just understand that sometimes the non-response could be due to the fact that they are already set for, the summer, for example.
Can you give a little bit of example? I'm thinking about your social impact fellowship program, just the timelines for, as you're saying, students are already looking, when we should be putting in applications.
So definitely at least a semester before. Okay. So our next posting is going to be for the fall. We posted early January for the summer.
Right.
Yeah, and even that, by the time they read it, by the time, they respond and all that, I feel like we have to start even earlier, but usually our partners are not ready to start earlier. So that's a little bit of a struggle, but yeah, the earlier, the better.
I'd like to add to that. So our timeline is a little bit different just because we don't have, it's not a formal partnership that is that far ahead. So our funding, it goes directly to the student. So what that means is that if the student is they're looking for an unpaid internship, that they tend to look in the spring semester for the summer, but they have to have that internship offer from you by May 15th, and then they can submit for the funding. Now we do, like I said, work with a limited number of nonprofits where we plan a little bit far ahead, but we don't have that. It doesn't have to be that far ahead of a timeline because the funding is going directly to the student, and the project that you're working out is coming from your end, and you're making the offer to the student by that time. I would recommend to everyone, though, to be very familiar, people online too, be very familiar with your local college and university semester terms, because some of the students will be pursuing credit, some will be pursuing funding. But just to give you an idea, in Atlanta, the students are starting school middle of August. They wrap up early December. So something to think about, like when you're saying, when are they going to be working and helping me with a particular event or whatever it is, program. Then they're going back like middle to end of January and ending the beginning of May. So you want to make sure that you have selected those interns far enough ahead for them to plan for housing or whatever they're going to do for the semester that they're going to be a part of that. And you want to make sure that it's being promoted far enough ahead that you have time to collect applications and review everyone and make those offers by the deadline for that university or college.
Which leads, go ahead. Oh, you have a question online?
Online, she actually has a resource for internships. She said for volunteer opportunities that can eventually become internships, she uses the school Give Pulse platform for colleges and universities such as Spelman, Morehouse, and GSU for the Atlanta organizations. Give Pulse.
Yeah, Agnes Scott has that as well. So if you connect with the, usually there's a we have Center for Leadership and Service, and then nonprofits can post their volunteer opportunities. So a lot of colleges are using Give Pulse. So that's a great idea.
Did y'all write that down? Give Pulse.
Give Pulse. Give Pulse. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Erica Smith online. that leads me to another question about just the length of time for internships, especially for students. And I know each college is different, but since I have two different colleges here, I would like to know from you all. I know for Georgia Tech, it's 10 weeks for if they're going through the fellowship program. But what would be a reasonable amount of time? What is the expectation of the student to help us out? Because as nonprofits, we're like, oh, if we get somebody in here, let's put them to work, and we have to figure out with their school schedule, but what is the appropriate amount of time?
So that's a great question. So for Agnes Scott, students have to work at least 130 hours over whatever term it is, whether it be spring or fall or summer. So, but we do recommend during the school year not to go over 15 hours a week. So 10 to 15 hours a week, totaling at least 130 hours, and then they'll be eligible for credit, but it won't compete with, their sport or their academics or whatever. In the summer, they're more available. Most of them are not taking classes, but the minimum is still the same. It's 130 hours. If they want the funding that I mentioned, the Advantage Award funding, then it has to be at least 160 hours, and it's only in the summer.
Yeah, for us it's 10 hours a week because they do this concurrent with the full course load, so they have to register for a minimum of 4 courses or 12 credits. So ours is structured as a part-time internship, so it's 10 hours a week. And then the 10 weeks are basically because a semester is 15 weeks long, but there's 1 week of spring break, there's the first week of school and the last week of school is kind of a wash. So that's how we kind of arrive to the 10 weeks, 10 hours for 10 weeks. So it's about 100 hours. And then with our partners, we tell them that they can have the same student 2 or 3 times. So if it's working out great and the student wants to continue, then we are very supportive of a longer term engagement.
That's awesome. I want to make sure that I give you all time to ask some questions. Do you have? Yeah.
I'm just curious, and I know the young lady here, I didn't get your name. What was your name? Anna? Okay. I'm Brianna. I'm just curious, what are the types of examples of just the type of internships? I mean, I know we talked about marketing interns, so assume maybe building a social media plan or maybe run my social media channels, right? But what are the types of roles for social work majors, for example, that you would post? And you can answer the question.
That's a great question for those online who didn't hear. What types of roles should you be posting for? And you're in social work?
No, I'm not in social work. I
Okay.
know you gave the example of
Oh, okay.
doing in social work. But
Right.
what is that? What is the role? What's the job?
Okay.
So I always recommend to ask for what you need. So the way our engagement works with nonprofits is what is the need? Have a job description for that, have kind of what are the skills that you need, and then that's what we will advertise. And then we tell students to apply directly with the person of contact at the organization. It's a competitive interview process, so the partner decides which students they pick, and then they recommend that student for the fellowship. But the partner knows best what they need, what type of students, and then they are the ones that select the students out of the pool of applicants. So we always say don't tailor it to what students are available, but look at what your real need is, and then that should drive your internship posting.
Can I address that as well?
Absolutely.
So what I would recommend is that you meet with your person on your staff that's in charge of that. Like if it's the volunteer manager that can't quite get everything done, or the marketing person, or the education manager, whoever it is, talk to them and say, what else would you do if you had the time to do it? And have them brainstorm with you. What could what could help you? Because they're going to be the person guiding them. And there are projects probably that they have in their mind that they just can't get to. So.
Any other questions from that?
Are there any other creative ideas for benefits that nonprofits can provide that would make them more competitive for interns?
Great question. Are there any ideas for creative benefits for nonprofits for interns, right? Okay.
So I can talk to what a Georgia Tech student looks for and how I advertise these fellowships to get their attention and to show them why they should take this instead of a corporate internship that pays them probably 5 times what
Tell
we
us.
pay them. and how I presented that this is a very unique and it differentiates you opportunity from the rest of the crowd who are doing the same corporate internships, because here you usually work with a small team and they will put you to work and you will see the different aspects of working in a, kind of like a startup, because most of the nonprofits that we work with have a team of less than 5. So that's what I tell them, that you will see all the aspects, like the ones that are working with Plywood. I know that they are there, part of the team meetings. At a corporate internship, you arrive, you have a fancy desk, but then you do the thing and that's it.
Right.
And so that's what I talk up, is that you're really hands-on involved and you get to see different aspects of an organization, of how it works. So that's kind of my spiel.
Yeah, from my end, I definitely say the same thing. But as far as what you can do on your end, when you're crafting that posting, Handshake will ask you for different things. So you won't, as long as you fill out of the entire form, you won't miss anything like how to apply or anything like that. But you can include things in there, whatever you can do. As I mentioned, some organizations have found ways to work in a stipend. And just even a stipend to defray the cost of their, housing or their transportation or what their professional wear, that kind of thing. But if you can't do that this year, there's other things you can do. You mentioned discounted or free subway cards or gas cards. You can ask your donors for those kinds of things and say, this is who it's going to. I'm going to a student who is working their way through school. And it's going to help our programs that you already believe in, and ask them for donations for gas cards or Grubhub or whatever it is that it's just a little bit extra. In addition, they're looking for, especially this generation, is looking for a sense of community. So the more you can get them involved, like, is there an affinity group you can get them involved in? Are there learning opportunities? Can you take them to a conference that they normally would have had to pay for, or a meeting? Can they meet the people that they want to meet? Can they do informational interviews with different leaders? You're helping them build their network, and if you communicate that, then they'll know, okay, this is really, I'm getting an incredible experience at a small organization where they're really going to invest in me, and I'm going to really help them and wear these different hats. But I'm also going to make an incredible network that I can, go from there.
I just want to add on to both what Dori and Catherine said. The bit about community and the one-on-one interaction, it speaks volumes, and honestly, it's priceless. So even for our interns, we and our fellows, to establish those rhythms where you're having one-on-one time with them and being able to bring them into those meetings, not just giving them their assignment and then telling them to go and finish it and come back to you, so that they feel included. It is the differentiator of being at sometimes a corporate environment rather than, as opposed to yours. And those are the types of things that will kind of play long-lasting in their experience as they're looking for other opportunities as well. So don't downplay that.
Yeah, I like to tell people, think about it like, what would you do to onboard a new staff member? You should do the same thing for the intern. And then once they feel a part of that community, they may stay connected to you as a volunteer or as a future job applicant, and then they'll go back to their school and brag about how wonderful this organization is that they just found out about, and they should, their colleagues should intern as well. It's basically word of mouth that you're producing that way.
And I would just add that all that will take a lot of your time. So when you're considering if you really need an intern or if you're ready for an intern, just understand that this is something that is going to take time. So that's one of the gentle advice that we always tell new organizations that we start working with, is just do kind of an internal audit. Like, especially if you're a woman or one man show, do you really have the time to spend time with that student? They are bright and they are passionate, but you need to onboard them, just like Catherine said, and you need to give them feedback, and they need a little bit of hand-holding. So just understand the balance of the benefit of having an extra pair of hand and support with what it would take on your end to develop that support and to get, the most out of it.
So for the student to receive funding, they have to have an assigned supervisor that they meet with each week, who's a specialist in the field, who also can answer their questions kind of in between. So yes, the supervisor needs to be on board that they have the time and they're really interested in doing this. I just wanted to point out another resource. When I was at Georgia State, we worked with other colleges and the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce to develop an internship toolkit for organizations. You can find that on their website. It walks you through everything, like how to set up the internship, how to promote it, what legal regulations are as versus paid or unpaid. It's really helpful. It's the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce Internship Toolkit.
All these takeaways. It's great. Latasha, how are we on time? Okay. Do you want to ask your question?
I was wondering, fellowship versus internship, what's the difference?
That's great. That's great. Go for it.
So fellowship is how we market it, since we pay the student directly, but for them, it's an internship with the organization. But it's just another way to make it more attractive, because this way they can put on their resume that they got a fellowship and they were an intern with a nonprofit. So it's just the way that we structure the compensation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just to add real quick. So career-wise, that definition has gotten kind of muddled. It isn't official. Like traditionally a fellowship was something you did after you graduated. But now people have been calling things fellowship when they, for various reasons. I think it does communicate at something where you are getting funding. So it makes sense. But from the student's perspective, it's an internship.
I was just going to add that one of the organizations that we partnered with, I work for a company called Chick-fil-A. And one of the organizations that we partnered with to really jumpstart our internship probably about 6 years ago is an organization called the Murdoch Foundation.
Okay.
And they actually provided funding for us to be able to have an internship. And our interns are with us for 10 months.
Yeah.
So it's usually the ones that are just coming out of school and they're looking for something, to figure out, okay, what's next for me. But just here recently, with COVID and the challenges that everybody experienced, it was usually on a cycle from like August until, that 10 months was up. But then we had to change it to accommodate because we weren't getting that many people to come in. And so we've had to add some of the funding from, we get Murdoch funding, and then we had to, of course, put more in it. But one of the benefits, I think, is they do get an opportunity to get a well-rounded view of how a nonprofit works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just one office you're in. They actually rotate with the different managers and the teams, and they also are able to travel to a conference. So, it's typically myself that will travel with 5 or 6 young people. I won't go into that, but we go to outside of Vancouver, Washington.
Nice.
And Seattle, Seattle, Washington. And that, it's an opportunity for them, and that's really a bonding opportunity for them with their community, with other interns, but also with our team.
And that's the Murdoch
Foundation.
Murdoch Foundation.
Vancouver, Washington.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I feel like our time is wrapped. I don't want you all to miss the next session in the main room, but I thank you for joining us today. I hope you had some takeaways and learned a little bit more. And please feel free, if you're still here, and Dori and Catherine.
Yeah, please connect.
Yes.
I'm happy to talk to anyone that has any more questions.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.